to our presentation. But right here is Kate Green, who's the manager of our Asia program, so that involves Nepal, Bangladesh, and Timor-Leste.
Okay.
And Cynthia Morinville, who is the seedmap.org coordinator and policy person here at USC Canada, working under Faris Ahmed. And I'm Elodie Mantha. I manage constituencies and volunteers at USC. And both Cynthia and I are new recruits from the spring, but Kate has been with us for
a long time.
A long time. We won't say the number of years, but she is a wealth of knowledge about all kinds of program-related stuff in Asia, definitely, but also she used to do the public engagement side of things, so she's quite well aware of what's happening in Canada around food and seeds. And so I hear from you guys that you all have quite a bit of background knowledge as well and interest in lots of things that USC does on various fronts, so that's great. I hope that this presentation is going to, some parts of it might seem basic to some of you and hopefully new to others, but pretty quickly we'll move into kind of concrete case studies of the work USC does, just so that you understand a little bit who we are as an organization. And after that, I'm looking forward to some good discussion about the work that you guys do and how we can support you. So bear with me for a moment. I'm going to try to do the screen share. And start screen share. Success. Did that work? Sweet. Okay. So today we would like to, we thought it'd be interesting to talk about the link between the local food systems and the global food systems. Since you guys are all really active on your own campus local food systems, we'd like to sort of talk a little bit about how that ties into the global work that we do as an organization. So I'll just introduce us quickly. If my clicker works, that's going to work again.
It's just because you are not in that application.
Okay. Thank you. So USC Canada is one of Canada's oldest nonprofit organizations. We were founded in 1945. Our name comes from the name of the organization at the time, which was the Unitarian Service Committee of Canada. We don't have a religious affiliation anymore. We have a bit of a kinship with Unitarians for sure, but we're not a religious organization per se. We started out as a humanitarian relief kind of organization to help Europe rebuild after the war, but in the last 10 years, we really focused on focusing on food issues specifically. So our mission today is to promote vibrant family farms, strong rural communities, and healthy ecosystems around the world. And as an organization, what makes us unique is that we really focus on agroecology as a mean both to provide sustainable livelihoods, help people provide for themselves and their families, but also as a means to protect agricultural biodiversity. So we work on both seeds and communities as kind of twin focuses. We work in 10 global south countries, and since last year we work in Canada as well. Yeah, so now we're at 11 countries around the world. And with this, I will pass it over to Kate.
So I'm going to start by trying to be interactive all across the country, which is always a bit of a trick, but we'll see. So from all of your experience, what do we need to grow food? What do we need? Somebody was just in a garden today. What were you working with?
Water.
Water?
Yeah.
Dirt.
Dirt.
Soil, yeah.
Definitely a growing material, so seeds preferably.
Planting materials.
Labor.
Labor.
Yeah, labor.
Some people, maybe some animals.
Definitely the knowledge, obviously. If you're lacking that, then you're going to be in quite a difficult situation.
That's right. Those are lots of things. So it takes so much. Producing food is so much of a system, and it has so many different parts. And I just quickly put together money and credit. Working with exchange is always really important too. The wind is part of it. For pollination, for drying soil, for warming soil, and cooling it down in the cooler seasons. Policies are involved. Elders, different levels of knowledge. That's already been mentioned. So many things are involved when you need to produce food, and that's true whether you're here in any of our collected places in Canada or anywhere else in the world. All of these things interact in different ways. I really like this schematic to look at food production, and this, again, I love it when we can find something that really puts us in common cause with people around the world, that this whole system is happening in little tiny villages, the edge of the Sahel in Africa, or in communities here in Canada. All things are interacting all the time. This schematic is from the International Agricultural Assessment done by the FAO a few years ago. And I just really like the way it puts food production at the center, but has so many overlapping rings of different issues. And if any part of that is really weak or repressed or removed or highly controlled, the whole thing weakens, and I can almost picture it tipping to one side. If the economic side or the environmental side is really, really weakened or pulled away, the whole thing can start to tip, and we're looking for that balance in there, and I do believe this applies in small communities here, large communities, and in communities around the world. So what are some of the things that make a really resilient local food system? And resilience is a phrase that's happily becoming much more commonly used in community work everywhere. I think I'm seeing it more and more. That you need to have, if you're resilient, you can recover from difficult situations. You can organize and learn and adapt, because every day is a little different. And it's a really key lens that USC Canada has been using for quite a few years. We didn't know it was resilience many years ago when I started, but that's become a key term and focus that we use. And it's also being studied more. And I know there's more literature and courses and things like that, even coming around resilience theories. So I'm going to share, I think I have actually 4 very specific examples that highlight different aspects of local food and seed issues around the world from USC programs. And then we'll draw, I'm going to try and actually draw that to some of the experiences you may be having here. So I'm going to try and blend the two. The first is from Bolivia. And in this picture is one of our colleagues. USC has all local colleagues and staff overseas. This woman's name is Natividad Colque, and she's in Bolivia. And she is a keeper of potato varieties, and she's showing some of the varieties that she keeps on her homestead land, and she helps organize around keeping that diversity growing and growing out each year. And the blanket there are, I think it's something like 27 different varieties of potatoes. There's one that's an imported foreign variety that has been brought in. All the other are local varieties with tons of different characteristics. And different to working with community seed bank, you can store things. Potatoes are really tricky that way. They're much harder to store over the longer term, so they need to be planted and grown out, but then mapped in the community so everybody knows where they could get something if there was a problem or they wanted to expand what they were growing based on their conditions. Sometimes the program managers like myself are traveling, we get a chance to take a picture that just captures the reason why diversity is so important and locally based seeds are so important. And this was the case. This was taken by a former colleague a few years ago in Bolivia. They woke up one morning and there had been a frost, a little bit out of season. They didn't expect to have a frost that night before. And you can see the brown fields. Those plants, potato plants, have just gone to mush. They're like jello sitting there. And by the middle of the day, they'll just be black compost on the ground. And then there are still some vibrant green patches as well. And the potatoes underneath the plants that have gone to mush and not survived the frost, I mean, you could eat them, but you'd probably get a stomachache. They're not ripe. They're not good. And they're certainly not possible for planting the next year. But the bright green ones have survived. And you can probably imagine which is the local variety that could handle something different that happened. And it's the bright green ones. It was an imported variety that had been brought in to grow sort of for export or for city eaters. It wasn't what the local people planted for themselves. And this is a wider shot of that same area. This is the terrain that those potatoes thrive in. So of course they're adapted to very different conditions, very rock, very steep, with very changeable temperatures. And all those 26 varieties are important to have in those different conditions. Whereas the imported variety was bred for these conditions. Completely different, about as different as you can imagine. And so that's where the real risk comes from, not having enough local diversity, local varieties, whether it's potatoes or other seeds, available to use and adapt in that place, and where the real difficulties come from the introduction of things from afar. A second example, especially for Sarah, knowing Honduras as well as she does, is from the program in Honduras. And it's really where we honor that local knowledge piece that our friend with us from Trent mentioned in her introduction. That this is a case where we're working in the upper highlands in Honduras, quite challenging environment, very affected by extreme weather now and more each year. And the farming communities are so well organized through our partner there. And what they do is they are the researchers. They proceed with, thinking of questions, problems that need to be tackled. And they set the agenda and they address them with FIPA, who's our partner in Honduras, who's really great at working with the farmers. And they design research practices that they can do on their farms, do in little teams, and track information, trying different things. You see examples of terracing, different ways of land management. The lady who's writing is probably actually just ticking off pictograms. She's not about pest issues in that particular crop. She probably can't read and write as we would expect, but she's just as valuable a researcher, and probably more so actually, because she's observing things in her space as they're testing different areas of pest management, using composts, different varieties of seed, different practices. The farmers lead the research, and they share it, and they've become so well known in Honduras. It's really, really extraordinary. And it's supporting the local organizing as well. They have community seed banks. They're very well known for varieties of seed that they have bred themselves and share, sort of completely exiting the formal corporate system of plant breeding. These farmers are leading it through their researcher teams and then organizing around that, dealing with local markets. And they're actually now really moving into trying to address policy issues in Honduras, which is really tricky and a huge area of work for them, but they're so strong with their local knowledge and experience that they're pushing at the national level now. So how do these kind of micro examples, feed? How do we feed the non-farm population, the people who are not, the whole population of the world? We need to produce surplus. And how can small scale like this, where you're investing in local diversity, where you're organizing with farmers, supporting farmers' knowledge? Well, we've been aware of this, and many, many organizations around the world knew that this was a successful way to farm, a better care of the planet, way to farm and grow food. But thankfully, stronger and stronger sort of more institutional documents are coming out in support. And this is from where that schematic at the beginning comes from, the International Agricultural Assessment in 2009. We were so glad this came out. And its big finding and conclusion was that small-scale diversified productions in production systems in developing countries are as productive, and they have less cost. They have a lower ecological cost than the high industrial farming methods, and they have a better chance to adapt. And in the 5 years since this came out, there have been study after study and report and conference again endorsing this. So it's been really helpful for us to have this kind of endorsement at the higher level. So it's not just, oh, those nice people and their little farming friends producing for their villages, all well and good. What are you going to do about the cities? When you start coming out with hard research, it's really, really good for the whole system. And how is USC involved directly in these? I'm mindful of our time, and I definitely want us to get to questions and also what Cynthia is going to share. So we have 5 areas of work. There's more about this on our website because, like I said at the beginning, growing food is a system. We're very known for our seed work and agricultural biodiversity work, but if we had blinders on to only that issue, the whole system wouldn't work. So we are involved in many different individual activities in each of our programs. And we have the Canadian work now as well, which has been really great that we've been able to actually get funding to work on the ground and in the ground through the Bauta Family Initiative on Canadian seed security. That's doing farmer-led plant breeding, community seed libraries, community seed banking, all of those things to support organic seed growers and heritage seed growers in this country. Sow and Save is a school program, kind of paired with Growing Up Organic in many cases, with elementary school students fit into the curriculum about why seeds are part of the food system, because we found that was a missing piece. Story of Food, great creative resources that we have to help support groups like yourself in pushing this local message. Do I have a couple more slides? I thought I do. Yeah. So 2 more quick examples, and these are from the Asia programs now. I apologize, I don't have a good African example from East or West Africa for you this afternoon. This is a case from one of the programs I'm very linked to, and this is from the far northwestern part of Nepal in Humla, which is a very remote part of Nepal. It's a 10-day walk to the nearest road, or you fly in. That's how I've been able to get there over the years. And these communities talk about being a local system. Local is what they've got, and they have a short growing season, very different conditions around each bend in the river. It's high, it's cold, it has a short growing season, and the soils are quite thin, but people have lived here for thousands of years. And the diversity of their food system is actually something that's going to be very important to the rest of the world too. So we've worked in these high areas for a long time. They have a very short growing season, so every moment of the day during the growing season is devoted to producing food, drying food and storing food and seed for the next year. And you can just see what a village is doing on a sunny September afternoon. But they do have real vulnerabilities, and it's so easy for diversity to be lost. And in our initial work up there, when the food system was very, very fragile and quite compromised when we began working there, now we work with our colleagues. Anga is there in the green shirt, and then these ladies in the village of Raya, slowly and carefully presenting in the community little farmer plots, diversity blocks they call them, of different kinds of beans. And they grow them exactly farmers' methods, right by the trail, a few little signs, and they meet kind of like a book club, except it's like a bean club. Every few weeks they meet and look at how it's growing. Oh, that one did well. That one's really fading on that frosty night the other night. It didn't do well. So they study them and follow them for a year and sometimes 2 years before seeds are shared out to the farmers to try of the varieties they want to try. So farmers set the agenda, make sure nothing is brought in that's from very far away. Sometimes there are varieties that we know are going to do pretty well from other experience in the country. It has to be done so carefully in such a fragile environment that's so remote and with only that one short growing season. It's not like Honduras or Timor or other parts of the world where it's growing all the time. So it's very carefully, locally based work. And the last example is from our program in Bangladesh, which is almost exclusively with teenage women and young men, several thousand of them, in growing organic vegetables. Through previous work we had done, it's a very young country. Young women are particularly vulnerable in their personal safety, their security for their lives, and the more skills they have, the more they contribute to their household with their parents and the rest of their lives. So organic vegetable growing, these young girls are farmers, and it really raises them up in that role. And they have seed gardens and community seed banks that they're running as well. We have a network in the Northwest involving just about all the 3,500 girls growing rare varieties, growing them out, starting to sell seed, running community seed banks, and now moving in selling the surplus vegetables. They've been growing, some have started to lease land and grow vegetables collectively, and I've been associated with Bangladesh for a really long time, and when I was first there as a grad student, this would have been unheard of. Social change has come and allowed young women to do things like lease a piece of land for a few years and grow vegetables collectively. The part that's trickier now is what to do selling in the marketplace. And young women in the marketplace is still not something that's really safe or a good idea. So we're working on some neat value chain pilot projects, working with specific marketplace vendors, trying to set up some small cooperatives that the girls can get a fair price for what they're growing. It's really high quality organic vegetables and organic seed, but their place in the marketplace is still quite tricky. So we're working on that right now in this coming year and a half. And it really strikes me that dealing with the market is something that each of you in the campus programs, you're dealing with a very complex market. And so making those arguments, finding unique ways to deal with the marketplace and introducing locally grown foods into market systems always takes a lot of negotiation, and that's a parallel that struck me from the work in Bangladesh. I think that's my last slide, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do I click for Cynthia? Yes,
Yeah.
you can. Over to Cynthia.
All right. Hi. As Elodie mentioned, my name is Cynthia Morinville. I'm the coordinator for policy and campaign here at USC. I've been here for a couple months now.
So not as much history and knowledge as Kate has to share, and she could talk about this for much longer if you get a chance to catch her in some of our events. It's very interesting to hear about the work we're doing overseas. I'm a long-term student activist, so I'm really excited about this new collaboration we might have with you guys and see where this can go. So let's keep this conversation rolling after today. So moving into what Canadian students can do, well, you can, on campuses and in your community, promote vibrant family farms, strong communities, healthy ecosystem, and that obviously starts as anybody else, as with your voting with your dollars, changing your lifestyle, committing to buying local, committing to meeting your farmers at the farmers market, know where your food come from, etc. There are so many avenues that students can engage, and not only you, because you guys are already very engaged and versatile and versed in those issues and doing work to make changes happen on your campuses. But if you know of anybody else that when you do or host those events on campus, there's so many ways we can do this. Get in touch with us. We have an endless list of things that we could suggest. So yeah, so get the word out. That's one of the things you can do. Obviously, we have fundraising events. So we held recently a concert. We have Run for Biodiversity. The funds we raised here helps doing the work we do with farmers in Canada and elsewhere, etc., etc. But as you guys are students and working in education in an educational settings right now, maybe doing research for undergrad or graduate work, start talking about agroecology. Research it, inform it, socialize the word is how we make change happen as well, and bust a myth. Because as we've seen in the examples that we've shown you, or with any other research that keeps coming out, as Kate was mentioning, agroecology can feed the world. But not only that, as we face a growing population and climate change, and you guys all know that, this is the best strategy we have to feed this growing population and make sure our food systems are resilient. Just a little bit of shameless promotion. I will introduce you to the Seed Map portal, which is what I work on most of the time. Before I do that, though, hold on a second. A very neat fact that I like to use is, well, currently estimations are that 9 out of 10 bites that are consumed worldwide comes and start with the planting of a seed. So when we talk about food security and food sovereignty, which are issues that are more discussed, I think, in research and in policy right now, it means seed security, and it means starting with seeds and starting with farmers' rights, and that's the way to ensure biodiversity in our agricultural system as well. And yeah, so get in touch with us, and now we'll launch the seedmap.org. And I'm gonna get the mouse from you so I can navigate.
Is it screen shared?
Yes, I will. Do you guys see this? Yes, okay. So this is our blog, and this is, if you type seedmap.org, this is where you land. We have resources in the classrooms that's coming throughout the summer. That's another thing we're working on, developing educational tools, and that if you guys are into education, it's also work you can do to make change happen as well. Get in touch, we'll talk. And here is the actual portal, which can also be accessed at map.seedmap.org. The Seed Map is an interactive, comprehensive online tool, and it's loading slowly right now. Thank you. All right, can you guys see it? Yeah, okay. The idea of Seed Map is to trace the origin of our food and know where it comes from, and showcase what kind of threats that the agricultural community is facing at present, and what kind of solutions are being developed by farmers, by participatory research, the kind of research we do with our partner organizations around the world, and what kind of peasant, so like Via Campesina, those kind of organizations, what kind of work they're doing and what kind of push for policy is currently happening. So a little bit of history behind the Seed Map. It started about 7 years ago from an idea of mapping how our food system and what it looks like. It started as a printed map. It was distributed in 15,000 copies in 7 languages across the world. It was a huge success. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 2006, the idea came to put it online and make it an interactive portal. In 2013, we launched the Seed Map for the first time. So it's been rolling for a year. And it currently has 374 case studies on it, and we're hoping to rope that up to 800 once we're done the establishment of a new interactive phase over the next year and a half, I think. So the way to navigate the seed map right now, you can access it through 3 different themes. So information, as I mentioned, is organized by food diversity, threats, or solution. So you could explore a theme and look at centers of diversity for crops, let's say, and then a seed map will bring you, I believe there's 12 case studies for this one. And sometimes we have videos or photography, information in the text box, and I don't know why the map is not loading behind. We'll just wait a little bit. Every time we also
I have to, sorry,
Yeah.
I was just going to chime in. It's actually some of our students that aren't on here. There's Ethan from Memorial and Wes from Carleton, and they actually have the original seed map up in their room. So often when I video chat with them, I can see it in the background. So.
That's so awesome. Our colleagues went to Rome last year and they walked into an office and it was there on the wall.
And I've seen it in India and Nepal, Bangladesh. It's all over the world.
And I have lots of copies in my office if you want more.
It's really amazing. So when you launch into the seed map, you always have a link and resources. And I think that's one of the neat thing about seed map is that it's thorough research that's behind the information that we showcase on the map. It's solid information, so you can always read more about it by clicking the link and resource about a case study that you might be browsing at the time. So now we're at Food Diversity, Center of Diversity for Crops, and as you can see at the bottom, there's 12 of them. So you could navigate them, the 12 of them, go back and then see just the titles, see where they're located. If you want more information, you can either click on the node here or click the case study at the bottom here, and we'll bring you more information on it. And then you'll have more information on the Sino-Japanese Center, again with the link and resources to further studies to learn about it. And then you can navigate it again through, this will bring you to the next center at that level deep of information, so exploring the case study boxes. Another way to look at it, if you don't particularly know what you want to look at, I'm going to close this. And then the seed map logo here acts as a reset button, so it brings you back to the front page where you have the 374 case studies, and you could technically navigate them all one by one, scrolling this way if you wanted to. Let's just say we want to hear more about potato that Kate talked to us about. We have this little search bar at the bottom, which works as a text finder search. So any word you can find, it's not indexed, so it's not like you need a list of what the things we've wanted you to search for. You just type whatever you might find interesting and see what's out there. So you have 18 case studies currently that have the word potato in them. So the way you can navigate them, because it's not a theme thread, you can't go, once you've opened it, you can't go to the next one. This is a tricky thing. We're working on it. It's a bit more difficult to navigate, but that just means you need to step back and you can read more about potatoes elsewhere. And again, this is what I did mention at the beginning. The color code is green is diversity, blue is the solution, and obviously red is for threats. Yeah. As a policy person, why I have about a minute left, and I really wanted to share with you why I'm thrilled about this email. I'm a bit of a data geek, so that makes it exciting for me. But agroecology and small-scale agriculture, when we think about it, when we talk about it, those case studies, those initiatives are inherently small by design, and that's intended that way because they're locally designed for local environments. But agroecology and the work that farmers are doing worldwide is a global movement. And picturing it on a map that showcases, now we have time the map, but showcases all of the work that's being done at present really gives you a sense of how big it is, how revolutionary it is, its potential, and using the platform to make policy change happen. That's where, to me, it galvanizes a larger potential. And I'm going to look at that. I'm in the 2015, as I mentioned, we're rolling into a more interactive phase and adding new features to this map. So if you have suggestions or ideas or any of those things, please get in touch, and I'm happy to discuss.
Awesome. Thank you, Cynthia. I'm just trying to go back to where we were on the presentation. I mean, really, we're basically done. There's just a few kinds of questions that I had for you guys. And I'll take the presentation down in a minute just so that you'll see that we have our contact information there when you look at it later. But basically, I'd like to hear more about the work you guys do. And, we all work in different parts of the organization, but all of us might have some kind of help that we can offer with some of your own projects and objectives. We'd also are curious if you're looking for, Sarah mentioned that one of the things you guys are working on this summer is kind of developing opportunities for students on your campuses to get involved when they come see you as an organizer in the fall. We have a few kind of public engagement programs, such as our Run for Biodiversity, which is basically people running in a marathon in one of their cities, or people organizing their own run. We have somebody who just did a triathlon for biodiversity. Somebody else has a ski for biodiversity.
There's even been a dance for biodiversity.
There's been a dance, and there's going to be a choir for biodiversity. So basically, the idea is you can organize your own event and do it for biodiversity by fundraising for our programs. We have some very neat T-shirts that you will receive if you do that. There's other ways to volunteer too. That's just sort of a nice one because it can be exported and self-organized. And the last question I have is, what are your thoughts about where the movement is at in terms of seed security? Is that a topic that, you think is already sort of being socialized, or do you think that people are really not thinking about seed yet? Us at USC, we want to get the idea of seed security out there, and we're going to be promoting a big campaign this fall to sort of bring that issue to the spotlight. But do you think that's something that needs more work on campuses, and if so, are you interested in working with us and getting that word out once our campaign is ready to be rolled out? So I'm going to go back to the webcam. I don't know how. Yeah, hit my little button. But yeah, so maybe I'll turn it back to Sarah to share the conversation.
Sure. Well, thank you guys so much. I think it's so interesting. We call the project the Campus Food Systems Project, and often get wrapped up in like procurement and getting dollars. And I think I really am excited to have this brought to a different level and think a little bit more holistically of what the work we're all doing actually connects to. So thank you guys, and I hope for the coordinators, this was you guys are some of the top experts on sort of global food systems on your campuses, but I think it's just really always important to hear this information echoed of what, the actual extreme importance this is to that image of the potatoes was like really striking to me, and I think that's something that we never think about when we have French fries. So I think you guys are amazing sort of conduits of sharing that information to the people who are eating the French fries, and the challenge is how to do it. So I think Elodie posed some really interesting questions, so maybe we can just start there, and just I'll throw this out to the group as well, Elodie, after this, and I can collect sort of other thoughts over the next couple weeks, so we can share this out. Yeah, so
I also forgot, if anybody has questions on anything we presented, please do. Just jump in.
Awesome. Okay, so if there's not, could we maybe go just a go around about are there ways of bringing this agroecology dialogue or this idea of from seed to plate onto campus, and if you're seeing really big opportunities or really big challenges, sort of raising that out. So Maggie, why don't we start with you on any thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I've just I've been thinking a lot about community gardening.
Oh, your mic is muted.
Oh, shoot.
I can hear her.
I can hear her.
Yeah, maybe your mic's okay.
Okay.
Maybe it's my headphones. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Anyway, so I've been thinking a lot about community gardening and bringing a more holistic approach to community gardening, and I think part of that is understanding not just the fact that you're planting seeds, but also understanding what happens to all of those seeds before they get there. So I think it kind of made me think of when we were planting our campus garden, the guy who brought all the seeds was like, oh, so these ones are actually heirloom tomatoes or lettuce, I can't remember what it was, which means like they're not GMO or anything like that. So I think it'd be really interesting if we had like some kind of harvest party with all of the produce that we've grown in the garden to identify and highlight the fact that some of these things are heirloom seeds and they're coming from more sustainable and more, I guess, traditional systems, and kind of using that as an education point on the importance of understanding not just like the farm to fork, but like the seed to fork kind of thing, like you just said, with the seed to plate. And so I think that would be an interesting way of bringing it about, because I don't think people think a lot about seeds here. Like I know in my development studies classes it comes up a lot, but that's kind of its own like separate culture on campus, and it's not necessarily thought about a lot in the general population. So.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Can I ask a question, a follow-up, real quick? So I just, you mentioned the guy who put this in your campus garden. Do you remember where he got him from, or what kind of process do you guys have to get your seeds year to year?
We're actually a new garden, so they've only planted one other year before that, and I wasn't involved, so I'm not really sure about what they did last year, but this year he's just a community member who has experience with gardening, and he just brought like a giant bag of seeds and said, okay, like I have all this stuff, what do you want to plant? So yeah, and then so he just mentioned that they were heirloom. So I don't know a lot about like how that happened, but it's definitely something I like to look into and kind of figure out where in our community we have access to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Kate's making a good point that because we have our Canadian Seed Security Initiative now, we could probably link you guys up with local to you seed producers if that's something of interest.
Yeah, definitely.
Because then they're really well adapted. And I happen to know a seed grower on Cape Breton Island, and I tell you that takes some fortitude to be a producer on Cape Breton. And her stuff will grow for you no matter what. Cape Breton hardy.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, we're just beside Cape Breton, so it's the same kind of.
I can tell you who she is.
Well, let's send that over after. Thank you.
Yeah, even I think sharing those stories about people, Kate, like if you had a bit of a, her story is such an important one to let people know like what local knowledge is so close.
One of the things that we can send you in follow-up notes from this is a seed navigator tool that if you're in a particular part of the country and want to find seeds that have been grown near you so that you know they're going to do really well, it's just come online with our partnership with Seeds of Diversity Canada. So the Seed Navigator can help you, and also the list of organic seed growers in Canada and heritage seed growers. Pretty much by definition, they will have grown it all themselves, or it will have come from very near to them. And so you can source, and you can do some seed saving yourself. It's a little hard in a mixed garden sometimes, but some varieties and some plants it's really pretty easy to do, and you can have true seed yourself and supply your own system.
I just found a little grid recently of how to save the seeds from the most common garden crops, so I can include that in the package that we'll send to you guys after this call. Thanks, Maggie.
Thanks, guys. SJ or Jada? Yeah, any thoughts?
Yeah. So we've also sort of just started our student-run garden, and we're partnered with a sort of very casual community organization that communally grows food. So instead of having a regular style community garden, everyone gardens together and then splits the crops. And I'm a part of that organization as well. And we have this year we lost one of our sort of main organizers. He moved away. So it's we had a bin of seeds, and we're still using those, and I have no idea where they came from. And so this year we actually bought seeds, and realizing we were a little bit slow on the startup, and we weren't that organized, and realizing the sort of the cost with seeds and the sort of uncertainty of where are these seeds that we're getting, where are they coming from, what will grow best, what will these things taste like. I'm hoping to make a big part of our garden workshops, including things like seed saving. And we're lucky that a lot of the students involved in our group do international internships, and a number of them are in India right now on Vandana Shiva's farm. So they're working sort of around this, and I'm hoping that some of that knowledge can come back to the garden, and that we can do a lot of seed saving, and that we can do that as a community. We're also well supported by a couple of community organizations that do seed saving and do seed exchanges. Unfortunately, those are often poorly timed with exams at the end of the semester, so we don't, we're not as involved, I think, as we would like to be, and it's purely a timing and organizational issue. But yeah, I'd be really interested to team up with some local people who have, you know, New Brunswick specific seeds, or crops, or Atlantic kind of crops, and really try and make our garden a whole, like I think it's the Ryerson uses the grow to throw model, so just making it a self-contained system. We can keep growing things.
So interesting.
I mean, we also get potatoes from the Potato Research Center, but we have no idea what those potatoes are, and they may or may not be genetically modified, but they're free. So that's the other part of trying to do this on a...
There's no GM potatoes yet in Canada, so you're probably okay on that front.
Okay. It's just, it wouldn't be like whole, this would just be like researchers with like a pipette, like,
yeah.
Who knows what they're doing to those potatoes before they give them to us.
Yeah. So do you find that there is some kind of awareness around seeds? Like it seems to be an issue that you're into, but outside of, you know, outside of your head, I guess, like, do other folks like get it too, or do you find you have to sort of like raise awareness?
Yeah, I don't think we have to raise awareness with the people who are already involved. There is a pretty big community of people into food security and food sovereignty in the city, and within that culture and community, seeds and seed saving is really desirable and culturally sort of a norm. But that doesn't mean that people really know how to. Like, I've never done it before, even though people would probably say, you know, I'm very for it and interested in it. I think there's sort of a lack of knowledge around it sometimes. And so the people who want to do it don't necessarily know how, and we're sort of figuring things out as we go along, and connecting with some people who actually do this with some experience, I think would be really great. Right now, pretty much everyone in the community is sort of doing it by trial and error. So it would be interesting if you guys know of some experts, these people who are seed growers, to have them come in. And I know there would be a lot of interest both within the food community and campus as well.
Okay. One of our partners from BAUTA, the organization in Ontario, puts on these really great seed-saving webinars every few weeks, it seems. So I can definitely send you the links to those, because you can do them anywhere. Great. Like how-tos. Yeah.
An Atlantic partner.
Atlantic partner. Acorn. Oh, Acorn does it too? Okay. Awesome.
Oh, do they?
Yes. Awesome. Great.
Yeah, Acorn's an amazing organization, unfortunately, and they have a lot of workshops. They're in person, but I don't have a car, and so they're very rarely in Fredericton. They're usually out on someone's farm. So,
yeah.
Maybe they'll get hooked up onto the internet soon.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent.
Dana, any thoughts from Dalhousie? I know Dalhousie actually just got a $17,000 levy for their student garden. So that's a pretty exciting move.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So which is kind of cool about Dalhousie is that we have a college of sustainability. So a lot of people are actually doing majors in sustainability. So I'm in that major. So we have Thursday night lectures as well as lectures obviously throughout the day. But Thursday night lectures are unique because all the community can come too. So we've had probably at least 3 lectures that pertain to seeds each year on the Thursday night lectures. So that's kind of cool. So you get a broad overview of that, but I would definitely be interested in learning about seed saving some more via the seminars. And what else was I going to say? So I'm actually helping out with the garden next year along with my other friend. So the person that Rob, who actually helped out with getting the levy. So right now we're just organizing it and preparing it for next year. So we were talking about doing some teach-ins in the garden. But seed saving would definitely be an interesting opportunity. The one that came to mind to kind of address the other people at Dalhousie that aren't necessarily know a lot about food sovereignty and seeds would be during our Green Week, and it's hosted in the Dalhousie Student Union building and other buildings across campus. So maybe if you have any flyers or any handbills or anything, that'd be really helpful because the more the merrier. And it happens in September, so it's a unique opportunity to begin the year with learning more about food systems and everything. Yeah.
So the first part of September when folks just get back on campus, or?
I believe it's the 3rd week in September.
Okay. Well, please send me the dates whenever you have them for sure, and I'll make sure to get you some flyers.
Cool.
Thank you.
And I think there's so many ideas running through my head right now. We have local food days, which are really great times to sometimes, especially at St. FX, actually highlighting local producers and connecting in with that. But I think often we focus so much on local food that we don't talk about where our other food is coming from. And I think there's a lot of potential to dig into things like rice and potatoes and things that quinoa that are and lentils and things that maybe coming from Canada, but often are coming from away, and digging into that a little bit to build some awareness about what food we're not getting and who are we supporting, and making sure that those decisions are really conscious.
Yeah, actually, what I was going to say, Maggie from St. FX and I and Allie were talking, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, about doing an event at Orientation Week to do with seeds and planting and everything. So that'd be kind of a cool opportunity to get some new students interested.
You could give them a little seed in September and ask them to hold on to it and take care of it until April, when you can actually put it in the ground.
Yeah.
And keep people's attention, because that's one of the hard things in our climate and working with the school year, is the school year is not actually a very good growing season in most parts of Canada. You can't plant in September and harvest in June, so you have to plant the ideas with people and keep them over the winter until you start preparing. So maybe if you're lucky in April, maybe in May you can put something in the ground, which is right after exams when everybody's doing summer jobs and things. So you could maybe give everyone a little bean to take care of in September.
Make them show their seed-saving cred.
Yes, and have them being at a few workshops or dances or music nights or things like that over the winter to keep the attention, because it is one of the tricky things.
It's like 2.0.
Exactly, you got to keep your bean, or those high school classes where you were given an egg to take care of for a week, except you got to keep your bean and be ready.
That's funny. We gave, actually, I think it was 2 years ago, we gave a tomato plant in a bag, so everyone could plant it no matter where you lived, in a house or in a campus residence, and they grew tomato plants, and that was pretty cool.
Good for you. That's a great thing.
Yeah.
Are any of you West Coaster going to be at the Food Secure Canada workshop in November?
East Coasters.
In East Coast, in Halifax?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't. It's 5 o'clock. Yeah, okay. Are you guys going to be there? Because we're going to be there. So if you are, drop us a line.
Cool. Yeah.
We shake hands properly. That would be nice.
That sounds good.
But we do hope we'll be in touch before November.
Well, it's the Food Secure Canada's annual conference. They, at all the ones I've gone to, and I've gone to a lot, they always had need for student volunteers to help with the conference, and it was kind of a way, often if you could get yourself there, you could be in the conference and help out. in lots and lots of ways, that they sort of scholarshiped in lots of students to be part of the Food Secure Canada conference. So you might want to get on their e-list and things like that, so you see the early notices for looking for student volunteers. And I think they also would sometimes subsidize getting people there if it wasn't too far, like help get people to the conference. They did that when it was here in Ottawa, and at least for the others that I've been to, it seemed to be a third students who were there giving their time, and then they got to participate as well.
And USC Canada is part of Food Secure Canada, so if you have any problems, just get in touch and we'll find inroads if that information is not readily available on the web.
Yeah.
We'll give them a call for you.
It's getting pretty close to 5, and I know we're going to have to sign off, so I'll leave you the final words, Sarah. But I just wanted to draw attention to this PDF that you shared when our call started, but we also have it by email if that's better. It's a little, it's like a little infographic style about agroecology. It's got like
cool.
To the bottom and sort of some key stats or speaking points that somebody's sharing it. That's better. That you can use in kind of in conversations or whenever you need to convince somebody basically of the merits of small-scale food production. So that's one thing. I also took notes of other things to send to you guys. So I think what I'll do is I'll format a whole email with all this stuff and send it to Sarah next week, and you can share it through. And the last thing is Cynthia and I have the privilege of going to the National Food Summit in August. I don't know if any of you guys will be there. I hope so. We're going to sponsor and get a bit of a brown bag lunch, the way I understand it. We haven't yet started putting together that brown bag lunch itself, but we'd be super open to ideas or suggestions of kinds of topics that you think would be most useful for us to focus on. Because we can take this stuff in a million different directions based on the work we do, and and obviously we're all pretty passionate about it. But I'd like to target it to whatever you think is going to have the biggest impact for you to bring that information out, or just to have your own questions answered, things like that. So please let me know if you have suggestions.
It's just outside of Toronto. Are you going to be there, Sarah?
I will, yeah, and most of our coordinators will be there. I think we're getting about 18 of our student organizers on the ground, and then there's about 30 others that come in. So it's a really amazing conference.
Nice. Cool. We're excited.
Yeah. I'm super stoked. Yeah. But if you want to have an informal conversation with us while we're there, we're about
we're going to be hanging out in the tents.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, thank you guys so much. Are there any other questions or thoughts from the crowd, or? No. Okay. Awesome. So thank you guys for bringing that context. We really appreciate getting as wide a scope. Food is such a complicated issue, and we're working on so many different aspects of it. So I think just bringing it back to farmers and seeds and history, and really, I love that diagram of resilience and having food production in the middle and all the different aspects. I think those are things we're all working on. So thank you for that inspiration, but also grounding us in what our sort of roles are. So I think over the next little while we'll have all the other students listen in on this and just collect ideas of what's necessary for the student, for possible connections. I think there's lots of possibilities with not only the events that go on, but also some of the research connecting to some of these global issues. So we'll populate all of that and pass it back your way. And yeah, thank you guys, everyone, for joining in this discussion.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. Nice meeting you guys.
Nice meeting y'all. Bye.
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 Bye.